Ellis, are you ready?
I did the last question, so I'm not sure what the same is really.
Opening statements?
Yes, whenever y'all are ready.
Yes, so you have 2 minutes for opening statements. It looks like Tim Eccles is not here.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll start with Michelle. You have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. Excuse me today, my voice is a bit hoarse, so I'm going to try and project a little louder. My name is Michelle Miller. I am a graduate of Penn State University in Energy and Sustainability Policy. I won a scholarship through Penn State to study renewable energy with the Green Program in Costa Rica. I'm certified in ArcGIS, which is transmission line siting, route optimization, metadata analysis. I'm also certified as an ethical leader in business and policy from the NASPA Center for the Public Trust. I've done deals in China, I've done deals in France, I've won a military contract through Brook City Base. So I'm very well qualified and experienced for this position. I am a Houston County resident, member of the Houston County GOP, also treasurer of the Middle Georgia Republican Women. I was a military spouse for 16 years, serving in Iraq and 3 times in Afghanistan. I have 2 kids. Ian is 12 and Elon is 7. Yay! Very happy about my beautiful children. But most importantly, the PSC regulates electric, natural gas, and telecommunications. But what I want to tell you is that we should be doing so much more for you. Every time that you pay your taxes, every time that you pay your utility bills, you are making an investment in Georgia. You are making an investment in the PSC, and that makes you a shareholder. And as a shareholder, your public service commissioner should be a financial steward and investor for you. We should be an advocate for you, and we should also be an educator. That isn't happening on the PSC today, and what I promise you is that I will use every drop of my education and my experience to provide solutions to bring our values to life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Austin, 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Kellie Pollard Austin, and I'm an 8th generation Georgian. I was born in Hall County. I grew up in Stevens County. I live in Gwinnett County now with my 5 kids. My kids are 12, 13, 14, 16, and 17. And I have a small business in economic development and consulting. I've been a lifelong Republican. My first vote was for Ronald Reagan when I was 3. And I'm sorry, 3rd grade, not 3, 3rd grade. But I'm very, very proud that he did win my elementary school. I was elected 20 years ago this spring as the youngest national delegate from the North Georgia to represent Georgia at the National Convention in '96. After that, I was really every different position in the party, but the Stevens County chairman, when we went from a majority Democrat county to a majority Republican. Spent really most of my life recruiting and training candidates because I believe that when we have people in office who believe in limited government, lower taxes, and more personal freedom, that our life is better. I'm running because I've known the incumbent most of my life. I'm running because I was challenged in whether I believed in my principles or would just follow blind loyalty. And what I discovered is that my opponent is not a conservative. He's voted for every rate increase, every tax increase, and every subsidy since being in office. And I believe that we must bring back fiscal, conservative, responsible principles to office for all these decisions that we make. My commitments are to make the Public Service Commission transparent and accountable, to track the votes and record them. Right now they don't record their votes. To make those meetings public and open. I would ask you to look into this, and I would love to earn your trust and earn your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Austin, I'll start with you. What is the single biggest energy issue facing Georgia's future, and what is your remedy to this issue?
I would say the absolute biggest issue that we have right now is irresponsible spending and decision making that simply doesn't make sense for Georgia consumers. The Public Service Commission is put in place to be the stewards, to be the representatives for every Georgian. And when we're making decisions that are right now putting Georgia Power with a Plant Vogtle, for example, anywhere between $1 and $8 billion over budget, depending on what numbers you look at and how you calculate that. It's just irresponsible. The question of whether it's prudent, you have to go back to the decisions they're making at the beginning. Georgia, we are not in an energy crisis. We have got so much more energy capacity and production ability right now that we don't have to be making these knee-jerk, politically correct, warm and fuzzy decisions that are financially expensive. So I believe that that's our biggest issue, is just to get back to financially sound decisions. We have 2 minutes to answer. Okay, I'll keep going for a second. Because there's so many different issues, and we can talk about, you know, the solar, the renewables, plant Vogel, wind, water, all the different options. And the reality is, I don't have an energy bias. Frankly, it doesn't matter to me which kind of energy we bring, as long as it's safe and secure and makes financial sense. Ultimately, I believe we've got to get out of the way of government. I believe that we have to do less as government, not more. We've got to reduce and lower regulations. We've got to make smart decisions as Georgians and not just be reacting to what the FCC and the EPA and the others mandates are. And those mandates only have jurisdiction over us when we take their money. And that's why I'm so strongly against us increasing subsidies, because that's the handcuffs that bind us to those federal regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. Ms. Miller, 2 minutes, same question, if you need me to reread it.
Please reread it.
Okay. What's the single biggest energy issue facing Georgia's future, and what is your remedy to that issue?
You know, for me, the single biggest issue is that the Public Service Commission does not have an impact on your communities in a positive way. Sure, there's rate increases. Sure, we're making investments on your behalf, but bills aren't being lowered. Jobs aren't being created. We're not producing projects where your tax revenue is being generated in your community. Energy technology is dynamic enough to do that. I think the second biggest issue is that the PSC does not have an open line of communication with your community. Did you know that in every community you make money on the water and you lose money on the sewage? But if you put an energy technology, for example, CHP, combined heat and power, it can generate electricity on site, it can heat the building, cool the building, even heat the water. If you put that on your water treatment facility, your community can save almost $200,000 a year. That money can be redirected into your budget. It can be used for much more needed services. And the problem is that we do not talk to each other. You know, my mentor used to tell me that knowledge falls sharply outside of one's discipline, right? And today, if you look at the PSC, we've never elected anyone that had education or experience, not ever. We don't have any other candidates in this race that does. And I tell you, when you have education and experience, not only can you create solutions, but the projects that you're putting together can start reaping those benefits of creating jobs and creating a tax revenue generator in your community and sharing information. But that does not happen. You know, we need to get beyond the rhetoric and go to the detailed solutions of what we can implement to get to the values that we love the most, which is more personal freedom, limited government, and being a fiscal conservative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
On clean energy, with the focus on clean energy, particularly solar energy, what role should the PSC take in helping consumers be given more cost-effective solar solutions? Should the current electricity providers be allowed to buy their excess solar at a fraction of the cost that the consumer pays, or be able to tout consumer-produced solar energy in their overall clean energy composition?
That's a good question. Who got it first?
Ms. Miller?
So what I'm hearing from the question is that you're asking how can we get solar into the hands of people? Okay. Yes, last year they passed HB 57, which made solar financing finally legal in the state. But I think from a PSC perspective, the problem that we have is every time we release an RFP, request for proposal, for example, the Georgia Power Advanced Solar Initiative. That was supposed to generate income in your communities. It was supposed to help your local businesses, farmers, and individuals participate in the solar development in Georgia, but that didn't happen. If you look at the RFPs that the PSC had been putting out there, it was $5 per kilowatt hour, one of the largest application fees in the nation. The industry average is $2 per kilowatt hour. Let me explain to you how bad that is. If you're building a 1 megawatt solar facility and you're paying $5 a kilowatt hour, times that by 1,000, that's $5,000 you're paying to have an opportunity to enter a lottery system, okay? So in Georgia, we have over 117 counties that are having economic depression, that are in poverty. Look up USDA Strike Force Region 1 map. The PSC could have had a direct impact if they would have included financial guarantees in that RFP, and they didn't. And here's the thing, we didn't have to create the way to do it because the USDA had the Red Lake program. They could have got a 0% interest loan up to $1 million and coupled with a $300,000 grant through the EMCs of Georgia. They could have had the ability to afford and own those solar panels instead of being land leasers. Okay, I want you to reap the entire benefit, not a fraction of what's happening, but the entire process, and that doesn't happen in Georgia today.
Thank you,
I'm
Ms.
going to
Miller.
change that.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Austin?
All right. I believe in the free market. I believe in private consumers having the ability to do whatever they want to do. What we have in Georgia is we have a little bit of a dichotomy. If you're a really big company, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do. You can institute new programs, you can change your energy production, you can retrofit your plant for biomass. But if you're a small business or a family, you don't have those same opportunities. You're limited. The regulations prevent that. We need to change this so that there's not an inequality in regulations and give the small business and the family the freedom to do whatever they want to do. With that, again, I believe that the answer is in the private sector. We've got to be careful about locking anything in to pay more than it costs to produce things. You know, if you ask my opponent the question the right way, then he'll admit that he's locked us into 20-year contracts for solar, paying up to 4 times as much for that solar as it actually costs to produce today because the prices dropped so much. It's hard to see those numbers because the numbers are proprietary. They don't let those be known. But if you see inside the contracts that have been granted, and that's why so many of these are not able to compete. We need to make all of this into a free market competitive basis. I know that we cannot stop all the regulations we have tomorrow, but we can stop extending them. As my opponent has said, they want to expand regulation to all emerging technologies. I want us to pull that back and regulate less and less to really let the free market work. So as far as selling back, we have to be very careful. We should have the ability to sell back, but when technology changes one iota further, then no one's going to be asking to sell back their energy to the grid because they're going to hold on to that because we'll have the ability to store that energy. That's really where we've got to push the market and push technology so that as innovation comes forward, just like we have the cell phones now, that's quite a transition from the big, huge computers of the 70s. We've got to do the same thing in energy.
Thank you so much.
Can I have a rebuttal right quick?
Certainly.
Just a brief one. I just want to say this, there was an inaccuracy. The avoided cost to produce a kilowatt hour of energy in Georgia is 4 cents. Solar is 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So the cost was only a 1 penny difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
But can I rebut that?
Certainly.
The reality is what I'm stating is that we're paying in contract up to 24 cents on some cases for solar power. Those are proprietary contracts. The information is not made available to the public. You cannot get that through Freedom of Information request. You can only get that if you see that from the contracts that some of these companies have won. That's covered under that proprietary information. That's my concern. It's not what we have for avoided costs and things like that, but it's really the fact that we have locked into contracts that are vastly more expensive than those 4, 5, and 6 cents per kilowatt hour that we actually consider and put out there on the books.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. We need to move on. We have time for one more question. We are constrained here, so we're going to make it a real quick one. Many of the public are not aware of what role the PSC, Many of the public are not aware of what role the PSC plays. State your understanding of the role and state your views on how that relates to the current structure and changes you would seek to push through. Ms. Miller?
Ms. Mudge? Okay, the role that we must play. Yes, we do pass regulations as far as the investments that we made, RFPs, projects. We do have control over rate increases, not with telecom, but with gas marketers and also with the public utility when it comes to electricity. Also, if you think about it, the PSC, our annual budget is less than $9 million, but we have billions of dollars that go through our doors. So if you're going to watch over the consumer's money, you need to make sure that you understand how to do the deal. You understand how to negotiate with the public utilities that are there, and that does not happen. You know, my opponent says 2 + 2 = 4 every single time. But what I want to tell you is this. When you're a Public Service Commission, you'll get a financial analysis from the lobbyists, you'll get it from the advocacy groups that hired an economist, you'll get it from the public utility, and then you'll get it from your staff. And all of those analysis will be different. You need education and experience to determine which one is the right one to pick. You do. You know, when it comes to the Public Service Commission, we have a root problem. We do not create a marketplace of solutions, which is something that I'm advocating for. If you think about telecommunications, we have businesses leaving communities all throughout South Georgia and Northeast Georgia because wireless is not there, broadband is not there. Although we do not have authority to regulate that, we can go above and beyond what the seat calls for in order to create those solutions. And one of the things that I've said is that every other year we'll have a conference. During the year we don't have a conference, your community will send me your most urgent issues. And I'm going to build workshops around those issues to solve your problems. Thank you.
Ms. Miller, point of clarification. When you said your opponent, were you referring to Mr. Eccles or Ms. Austin?
Which part?
2 + 2 = 4.
No, she says that.
Okay. At my discretion, 30-second rebuttal to that before your closing statement.
Okay. I do believe that 2 + 2 should equal 4 every time. And I know that that sounds dumbing it down and making it too simplistic. But I think when we're making the decisions that are being made right now, it is that simple so often. Because we're making decisions where the numbers simply don't add up. And we've got to look at where the numbers add up. You want to get into my answer on the same question?
10 seconds.
Okay. 10 seconds.
For the rebuttal, yes.
Okay.
Included your closing statement, that's right.
Okay, okay.
And time's up, so now closing statement, please.
Hold on, she hasn't yet.
Whatever
Oh,
done,
I'm
you
sorry.
answer the
I am so
question.
sorry. I
All right. The role of the Public Service Commission. I mean, technically you can go and look at the site, and what it says is that they are responsible to ensure that every Georgian has access to safe, reliable, reasonably priced electricity, natural gas, and telecommunications. We have gotten so far on the focus of safe and reliable when we're already there and completely avoided the role of reasonably priced. That has got to be, as fiduciary stewards of your money, of tax dollars, and of setting rates and approving rates, that's got to be so intrinsic in it. The Public Service Commission now does oversee all the aspects of dozens and dozens of different industries. But ultimately it's about making smart decisions and being able to look ahead at what the ramifications of those decisions are that really exceed what you're reading in the documents. For example, with Plant Vogel, the Public Service Commission fought for and got these federal loan guarantees for Plant Vogel. Now, if you look across the river, South Carolina did not get those. Those right there entail us to many, many federal regulations that South Carolina is not required to, including we have to use union labor to build Plant Vogel. That's a 15 to 40% increase in our labor cost that South Carolina is not paying for Sumner. Those are some little small issues that have vast ramifications, and when we entail ourselves to federal mandates and federal regulations, we're at the absolute whim and mercy of their whim. And we've seen how that's gone. We simply can't do that. So So my goal is to limit the role of government. And the question really being, can we do less as government so that individuals in private business can do more?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to closing statements. 2 minutes each. Ms. Miller, will you go first?
Okay. You know, throughout this campaign trail, I've been on the road since 2014, and I put over 116,000 miles on my car. But one thing I would tell you is regardless of the county that I go to, or the county commissioners or local public officials that I speak to, I take the time out to create solutions there on the spot. You know, I had a customer come to me. He lives in the North Georgia mountains. He's surrounded by trees, no natural gas coming up into his area, and yet he has an electric bill of $3,000 a month. It was because of my education and my experience that I was able to give him a solution on the spot and help out. When county commissioners come to me and they tell me that the deals that they entered have gone awry, they're paying more for energy than what they can sell it for in their communities, and they want a solution, I've taken the time and sat down and given them solutions. The farmers of Georgia who said that they were losing their shirts on commodity crops, and it's expected to be even more bad within the next 2 to 3 years. I've sat down and I've given them solutions to help them, not only their business, but their communities. You know, we can talk about Republican values all day long, but my question to you is, are you tired of people taking your values that you love so much and using it as sound bites? Are you tired of being excited every time someone says limited government, more personal freedom, and being a fiscal conservative, but have no solutions on how to get there? I want to see the values that I love come to life. I want to see it come to life. And in order for it to happen, we have to have people who are willing to work the bone to get it done. And that cannot happen in this specialized industry without education and without experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you again for having me today. I just want to reiterate that as a lifelong Republican, spending my life to really bring these concepts and principles into fruition. My opponent, the incumbent, who has said these things but has failed to follow through. And that's a difficult thing to run against the people that you've worked with. But as Republicans, we have to hold firm to what we believe and what we say we're going to do. As he said, he would oppose the pre-charge of Vogel, and then he voted for it after he said he would oppose it once he was in office. You can't do that. My other opponent, and she can have the rebuttal on this, has not yet voted for a Georgia Republican, has not yet voted in a Republican primary. These are things that really, really matter. I believe in limited government, lower taxes, and more personal freedom. My 3 commitments are to make the Public Service Commission votes recorded and searchable, just as they are in the legislature. To make the public hearings publicly live streamed on the internet, just like we do in the legislature. And to make every rate increase promoted, to put it out there so that we know what the rate increases are, and allow for an electronic format for input so that people can give their feedback. We all know about the $1 billion transportation tax they passed a year or so ago. For or against it, Georgians knew about that. But did you know that the PSC voted for $6.9 billion for infrastructure a few months ago without even having a description of what that was going to go towards until after they voted? It sounds kind of like the omnibus or the Obamacare, these other things where we're not even knowing what's being decided until after the fact. So it's about opposing it. At the core, do you believe that government is the solution to the problem? More government, more regulation, or do you believe that government is more often the problem itself, and we've got to back off from that? That's the 2 questions, and I really appreciate that both the opponents have made it clear for more government, broader solutions, broader regulations, or limited government, lower taxes, and more personal freedom. My name is Kellie Pollard, Austin. I would ask to earn your trust and your vote. Thank you.
I get a 30-second rebuttal. You know, I'll tell you this. I have never voted in a Democratic primary or have been a member of the Democratic Party. If you look in 2014 or 2013, I've worked for Shaw Blackman, State Representative Shaw Blackman. I have pictures of me standing on the corner with his signs. I have pictures of me sitting down, phone banking for him, and yes, I did vote for him. I also worked for Jay Lynn. I also worked for Larry Walker. I have done time in my community. But let me say this, which is important. How you run your campaign is an indicator of who you're going to be as a public
30
servant.
seconds.
If you're willing.
Ms. Miller.
Oh,
30
sorry.
seconds.
Oh, it's all, I'm sorry, I saw the clock going, so I got.
Oh, sorry.
Can I have 1 second?
Sure.
If you're willing to spread mistruths and lies to get to an office, when you're in the office, you're going to do the same thing. And we need to hold people accountable when they're candidates of the lies and untruths that they tell. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
15 seconds.
I'm not really sure what the rebuttal is, so, you know, it was too broad an allegation. If there was anything specific, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but.
Okay. Thank you.
I have
very much,
pictures,
both of you.
proof.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
ladies.
Thank you very much.
Our next